The complete story revised, no dividers. The shovelhead's carburetor was giving him hell again. Marcus Sullivan sat on the rolling stool wrench in his scarred hands, staring at the engine like it might whisper its secrets if he waited long enough. 3 in the morning. The fluorescent lights in the garage buzzed overhead, that particular frequency that got under your skin if you listened too close. Outside, the Arizona desert pressed against the windows of the Hells Angels Phoenix clubhouse, silent, except for the occasional semi-blasting past on the highway a mile out. 58 years old. Chapter president. 40 years of working on bikes, fighting when necessary, building a life most people would never understand and wouldn't want to if they could. Marcus wiped grease from his fingers onto the red shop rag, the same kind his father used to carry. Frank Sullivan, dead 17 years now. Iraq, they said, died a hero covering his unit during an ambush. Marcus didn't think about his father much anymore. Didn't think about a lot of things. The things you don't think about have a way of thinking about you, though. They wait in the spaces between your thoughts, patient as stone, and when you're alone at 3 in the morning with nothing but an engine that won't cooperate and the hum of cheap lights, they come calling. 15 years since he'd spoken to his mother. 15 years since that fight, since she'd stood in this very garage and told him she was ashamed of the life he'd chosen, ashamed of the patch on his back, ashamed that Frank Sullivan's son had become this. And Marcus, 24 years younger and infinitely more stupid, had told her she didn't know him anymore, didn't have the right to judge, didn't understand that this club was the only family that had never asked him to be anything other than what he was. She'd slapped him, not hard, just enough to make the point, and he'd walked out, threw a leg over his bike, and rode until Phoenix was just lights in the rear view, until the desert opened up vast and empty as the space growing between him and the woman who'd raised him alone after Frank died. He'd meant to call. First week became first month, became first year, became 15 of them, and at some point the silence calcified into something too heavy to lift. Pride, maybe, or shame that looked enough like pride that you couldn't tell the difference in the dark. The carburetor float was sticking. Marcus could feel it in the way the engine wanted to flood, in the resistance when he tried to adjust the mixture. He'd rebuilt this thing twice already, but the idle was still rough, still fought him. Some things just needed more time, more patience, more work. A sound, faint, outside the bay door. Could have been wind, could have been a plastic bag tumbling across the parking lot, could have been nothing. But living this life taught you to notice the small things, the shifts in pressure. When someone moved too close, the scrape of a shoe on concrete, the difference between wind and breath held too long. Marcus set the wrench down slowly. His knees protested when he stood all those years on motorcycles, all those crashes that should have killed him but only left him stiff in the mornings and aware of weather changes a day before they arrived. He walked to the bay door, boots quiet despite his size. Big man, 6'2", 220, but he'd learned to move like he was half that when it mattered. His hand reached for the lock. Then he heard it again. Not wind, a shuffle, a scrape, something heavy dragging across pavement. Then a voice, barely above a whisper, cracked with pain or exhaustion or both. Marcus Sullivan. He yanked the door up. The woman collapsed forward onto the concrete floor before he could catch her, and for a moment all Marcus could process was blood. Jesus Christ, so much blood. Her gray hair was matted with it, dark and wet. Her face was swollen beyond recognition, one eye completely shut, the other just a slit. Her clothes, a floral dress he might have seen on any grandmother at a grocery store, were torn and stained rust brown. She was old, 80 maybe older, hard to tell with the damage. Holy hell! Marcus dropped to his knees beside her. Don't move, I got you. Her good eye opened just a crack and fixed on his face with an intensity that cut through the shock. Help! The word came out broken wet. Help! I'm calling 911. Just hold on. Marcus pulled his phone from his pocket, hands steadier than they should have been. He'd seen violence done violence, but this was different. This was someone's grandmother bleeding out on his garage floor at 3 in the morning, and the wrongness of it made his skin crawl. 911, what's your emergency? I need an ambulance at 4721 South Desert Road. Woman elderly, severe head trauma, looks like she's been beaten. His voice came out flat professional, the tone you used when emotion would slow you down. The operator started asking questions. Conscious, yes. Breathing labored, but yes. How many attackers unknown? Marcus answered on autopilot, his other hand on the woman's shoulder, keeping her still. She was trying to move, trying to say something, her hands scrabbling at the concrete. Ma'am, please stay still. Help's coming. He kept his voice gentle, the way you'd talk to a spooked horse. Her hands, small and fragile and covered in bruises that looked days old, reached up and grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Marcus. She knew his name. How the hell did she know his name? Ambulance is 4 minutes out, the operator said. Stay on the line. Marcus looked down at the woman's face. Really looked. Past the blood, past the swelling, past 20 years, and 1,000 miles of distance he'd put between himself and everyone who used to matter. Past his own stubborn refusal to see what was right in front of him. The phone slipped from his hand. No, 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 no. Sir, are you there? He couldn't breathe. The garage tilted sideways, and he grabbed the woman's hand, his mother's hand, Dorothy Sullivan's hand, and held it like she might disappear if he let go. Mom. Her eye focused on him just for a second, just long enough for him to see recognition. Relief. Then she went limp. Mom, no, stay with me, Mom. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Never fast enough. Marcus pressed his hand to the wound on her head, trying to stop the bleeding, trying to do something, anything. His hands were shaking now. The hands that could rebuild an engine blindfolded, throw a punch that would drop a man twice his size navigate a bike at 90 miles per hour in the dark. Those hands were shaking. Come on, don't you do this. The ambulance lights painted the garage red and blue. Paramedics rushed in, professional and efficient, and pushed him aside with practiced firmness. Questions. So many questions. Do you know her? She's my mother. When did you last see her? 15 years ago. Do you know what happened? No, she just showed up. She just appeared at my door. They loaded her onto a stretcher. Marcus followed, operating on instinct because his brain had stopped working the moment he recognized her face. Dorothy Sullivan, 80 years old. The woman who'd raised him alone after Frank died. The woman he'd walked away from without looking back. The woman he'd been too proud to call, too angry to forgive, too goddamn stubborn to admit he missed. She was dying on a stretcher in front of him, and he hadn't said a word to her in 15 years. Sir, are you riding with us? Marcus nodded, couldn't speak. Climbed into the ambulance and sat where they told him to sit, watching the paramedics work, watching his mother's chest rise and fall with the help of a machine forcing air into her lungs. The ambulance doors slammed shut. The siren screamed into the night. And Marcus Sullivan, who'd faced down rival clubs, who'd done time in state prison, who'd buried friends and enemies alike without shedding a tear, put his face in his hands and felt something inside him crack wide open. The emergency room smelled like disinfectant and fear. Marcus sat in a plastic chair designed to be uncomfortable, staring at linoleum tiles that had been cleaned 1,000 times but would never look clean. His hands were still covered in her blood. Dried now, dark red, almost black under the fluorescent lights. A nurse had offered him towels. He'd refused. Couldn't explain why. Maybe because washing her blood off his hands felt like admitting this was real. Mr. Sullivan. He looked up. A doctor male mid-50s, great at the temples, exhaustion around his eyes. The kind that came from too many double shifts and too many patients who didn't make it. Marcus stood. How is she? Let's talk in the consultation room. That wasn't an answer. That was doctor speak for it's bad. Marcus followed him down a hallway through a door into a small room with a table and more plastic chairs. There was a box of tissues on the table. That told him everything he needed to know. Your mother is in critical condition, the doctor said. His name tag read Dr. Thompson. She has a severe traumatic brain injury, skull fracture, 3 broken ribs, extensive bruising across her torso and arms. We've had to intubate her. She's on a ventilator. Marcus sat down before his legs gave out. How bad? Dr. Thompson pulled up an X-ray on a light box mounted to the wall. The skull fracture is here, he pointed. We've relieved some of the pressure on her brain, but there's still significant swelling. The next 72 hours are critical. What are her chances? 35%. The number hit like a fist to the gut. Marcus couldn't breathe for a moment. 35%. Better than 0, worse than anything else. The injuries to her ribs are concerning because of her age. Dr. Thompson continued. 1 punctured her lung. We've repaired it, but she's fragile. And Mr. Sullivan, these bruises, these injuries, they're not from tonight. Marcus looked at the X-ray, saw the shadows, the bone damage that had healed wrong, the evidence of violence that stretched back weeks or months. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother has been suffering abuse for months, possibly longer. This fracture to her left wrist that's at least 3 months old. It was never properly set. And these burn marks on her forearm, burn marks. Marcus's vision tunneled. The edges of the room went dark and all he could see was that X-ray. Evidence, proof that someone had been hurting his mother. Systematically, for months. Who did this? His voice came out wrong. Too quiet, too controlled. The kind of quiet that preceded vigilance that smart people recognized and stepped back from. We've contacted the police, Dr. Thompson said carefully. They'll want to speak with you. Who did this? The words exploded out of him. He was on his feet, chair flying backward, his fist slamming into the wall hard enough to leave a dent in the drywall. Dr. Thompson stepped back, hand moving toward the emergency call button. Marcus forced himself to breathe, unclenched his fist, blood on his knuckles, now his own, this time mixing with his mother's. I'm sorry. Mr. Sullivan, I understand this is difficult. Can I see her? She's in the ICU, family only, and given her condition, I can only allow 5 minutes. She's not conscious. She may not wake up for days if she wakes up at all. The walk to the ICU felt like miles. A nurse led him through double doors, past rooms with machines beeping and people dying to a room at the end of the hall. 5 minutes, she said softly. Marcus stepped inside. The woman on the bed didn't look like his mother. Dorothy Sullivan had been strong, tough, a nurse for 35 years who'd worked double shifts and still found time to make sure he did his homework, who'd never once complained about how hard it was raising a kid alone. The woman on the bed looked small, fragile, ancient. Tubes ran from her mouth, her arms, her chest. Equipment hummed its steady rhythm, maintaining vigil over her failing body. Her face was swollen beyond recognition, both eyes black. Her hands, those hands that had bandaged his scraped knees and taught him how to change oil in a car and slapped him across the face when he came home drunk at 17, were wrapped in bandages. Marcus pulled a chair close to the bed, sat down, took her hand as gently as he knew how. It was cold. Mom, his voice cracked. Mom, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm here. The monitors hummed. Life support whispered and clicked. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry for everything, for all of it. 15 years. 15 years since the fight, since she'd told him she was ashamed of the life he'd chosen, since he'd told her she didn't know him anymore, since he'd walked out and never looked back. 15 years of birthdays he didn't call for. Christmases he spent alone or with the club because going home meant admitting he was wrong, and Marcus Sullivan didn't admit he was wrong. 15 years of pride and anger and stubborn refusal to be the one who bent first. And now she was dying. Who did this to you? Words caught in his chest. Who the hell did this? No answer. Just the hum of machines and the mechanical rhythm of air being forced into her lungs. Marcus sat there holding her hand until the nurse came to tell him his time was up. He didn't move. Sir, I'm sorry, but regulations require just one more minute, please. The nurse looked at his face and nodded, left quietly. Marcus leaned forward, pressed his forehead against his mother's hand. I'll find them, he whispered. Whoever did this, I'll find them, and I will make them pay. I swear to God, I will make them pay. Gunner arrived first. Thomas Gunner Mitchell, 52 years old, vice president of the Phoenix Charter. They had ridden together for 23 years, fought together, bled together, buried brothers together. Gunner took one look at Marcus's face and didn't ask questions, just sat down beside him in the waiting room and waited. Ghost showed up 20 minutes later, then Razor. Three of his closest brothers showing up at dawn because when one of them was hurting, they all felt it. Iron. Gunner's voice was quiet, club nickname. Marcus Iron Sullivan earned in a fight outside a Tucson bar when he was 23 and stupid enough to take on 5 men with his bare hands. 1, 2, though he'd spent a week in the hospital after. What do you need? Marcus stared at the floor. I need to know who did this. Police coming. Detectives supposed to be here soon. What do you know so far? Nothing. She showed up at the clubhouse. Collapsed. I didn't even recognize her at first. His voice went rough. 15 years. 15 goddamn years. And I didn't even recognize my own mother. Razor ex-cop still had connections in the department, leaned forward. Iron, this kind of damage, this wasn't random. Someone did this over time. I know. You know where she's been living? No. The admission tasted like ash. I don't know anything about her life. I cut her off. Completely. The silence that followed wasn't judgment. These men knew about cutting ties, about burning bridges, about the kind of pride that destroyed families. They'd all done it in one way or another. We'll find out, Gunner said. Whatever you need, brother, we're here. Before Marcus could respond, a woman in a gray suit approached. Mid-40s, dark hair, pulled back eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. Marcus Sullivan. He stood. Yeah. She flashed a badge. Detective Sarah Reeves, Phoenix PD. I need to ask you some questions about Dorothy Sullivan. This isn't an interrogation. Should it be? They stared at each other. Marcus had dealt with cops plenty of times. Knew the games they played, knew when to talk and when to lawyer up. But this was different. This was his mother. Ask your questions. Reeves pulled out a notebook. When was the last time you saw your mother? 15 years ago. Her pen paused. 15 years. We had a falling out. I left. Didn't stay in touch. So you don't know where she's been living? Who she's been living with? No. Reeves studied him for a moment. Professional cop face giving nothing away. Then she said something that made his blood run cold. Your mother has been living in Scottsdale with a man named Donovan Wade, 52 years old, former Marine. She paused. And according to her medical records, this isn't the first time she's been treated for injuries consistent with domestic violence. The floor dropped out from under him. What? There was an incident 6 months ago. She came into a clinic with a broken wrist, told the doctor she fell. They didn't believe her, but she refused to press charges, refused to give any information about who might have hurt her. Speech failed Marcus for a moment. Then Donovan Wade. You know him? No, never heard the name before in my life. Well, he knows you, or knew about you. Reeves flipped a page in her notebook. We found evidence at the house. Your mother kept newspapers clippings, articles about the Hells Angels, pictures of you from years ago, from when you were younger. Marcus sat back down. The room was spinning. According to public records, Reeves continued, your mother legally adopted Donovan Wade in 2009. He was 35 at the time. 2009. The year Marcus had walked out. The year he'd stopped calling. She adopted a grown man, apparently. Do you know why she might have done that? No, I told you we didn't talk. I don't know anything about her life. Reeves watched him carefully. Where were you last night between 7 p.m. and 2 a.m.? At the clubhouse, working on a bike. Gunner was there. So were about 15 other guys. Can they verify that? Yeah, and we've got security cameras. Reeves made a note. We're looking for Donovan Wade now. He disappeared sometime yesterday. His truck is gone, his clothes are gone. We have reason to believe he assaulted your mother and fled when she managed to escape. She escaped. Silence was all Marcus could manage for a moment. She was 80 years old and beaten half to death, and she escaped him and came to you. You said you hadn't spoken in 15 years. Why would she come to you? Good question. The same question Marcus had been asking himself since the moment he recognized her face. I don't know, maybe because she knew I'd help, even after everything. Reeves closed her notebook. Mr. Sullivan, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen a lot of domestic violence cases. Most of them don't end well. The fact that your mother had the strength to leave to find help that takes courage, most people don't have. She almost died getting to me, but she did get to you, and now we need to find the man who did this to her. Reeves's expression hardened. If you hear anything, if you find out anything about Donovan Wade's whereabouts, you call me immediately. Do not take this into your own hands. Marcus stood, looked her in the eye. You do your job, detective. I'll do mine. Mr. Sullivan, I strongly advise you not to interfere with this investigation. If you threaten a suspect, if you do anything that compromises our ability to prosecute, I'm not threatening anyone. I'm making a promise to my mother. He walked away before she could respond. The sun was coming up. Desert sunrise, all orange and red, bleeding across the sky like an open wound. Marcus stood in the parking lot, breathing hard, trying to get control of himself. Donovan Wade. His mother had adopted a man, a stranger, 15 years ago. Right after Marcus left. Why? Why didn't matter? Not right now. What mattered was finding the son of a bitch who'd turned his mother into a prisoner, who'd beaten her, burned her, broken her bones, and left them to heal wrong. Iron. Razor was beside him, quiet, steady. I need you to find everything you can about Donovan Wade, where he's been, where he might go. I want to know what he eats for breakfast and what he sees when he closes his eyes at night. Already on it. Called a buddy in records. Should have something in a few hours. Good. Iron. Razor's voice dropped. You got to know what Reeves said is right. If we find him first and you do something that puts you in a cell next to him, your mother loses you again. Can't help her from prison. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to say that justice and revenge looked the same when it came to people who hurt old women. But Razor had a point. Going off half-cocked would just land Marcus in jail and leave his mother alone again. The right way, he agreed, his jaw tight. But we find him soon. The address Detective Reeves had given him led to a neighborhood that had seen better days. Houses that were nice once 30 years ago, now showing their age. Cracked driveways, faded paint chain link fences, rusting at the joints. His mother's house. God, it hurt to think of it that way. Sat at the end of a cul-de-sac. Single-story, white stuck, red tile roof. The yard was overgrown weeds pushing through cracks in the concrete. Marcus pulled up on his bike, Gunner and Ghost right behind him. The house was still taped off with police line. Crime scene. A uniformed officer stood by the front door. Young, maybe 25, trying to look tough. "Sir, this is an active crime scene. You can't be here." Marcus pulled off his helmet. "This is my mother's house." "I'm sorry, but without authorization." "Call Detective Reeves. Tell her Marcus Sullivan is here." The cop hesitated, then spoke into his radio. A moment later, he stepped aside. The front door was unlocked. Marcus pushed it open. The smell hit him first. Alcohol, sweat, something rotten underneath it all. The living room was a disaster. Furniture overturned, broken glass on the floor, empty bottles everywhere. Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, cheap vodka from the bottom shelf. Pictures on the wall. Marcus walked closer, his mother younger, smiling with a man in a Marine uniform. Dark hair, strong jaw. Had to be Donovan Wade. There were more pictures. Dorothy and Donovan at the Grand Canyon, at some kind of ceremony. At a restaurant, both of them looking happy. When had these been taken 5 years ago? The smiles looked real. Marcus moved through the house. Kitchen, more bottles. Dishes piled in the sink. Food rotting on the counter. Bathroom. Medicine cabinet full of prescriptions. Pain pills. Anxiety medication. All in his mother's name. And then he found her room. It was at the back of the house, small. The door had a deadbolt on the outside. Marcus's vision went red. A deadbolt. On the outside, like a prison cell. He pushed the door open. The room was tiny. A single bed, a dresser, no TV, no phone. The window had been nailed shut. This was where his mother lived. Not as a guest, not as an adoptive parent, as a prisoner. On the dresser, he found a journal. Old worn, the kind with the cloth cover and lined pages. He opened it. His mother's handwriting, still neat even in her 80s, even when she was writing about hell. November 12th. Donovan came home drunk again. Said terrible things. I tried to calm him down, but he pushed me. I fell against the kitchen counter. My wrist hurts, but I can't go to the doctor. He won't let me. Marcus flipped ahead. January 3rd. He locked me in my room today. Said I deserved it. Said I was ungrateful. I don't understand what I did wrong. I gave him everything after Frank died. I thought I was helping. I thought I could save him like Frank did. Frank, his father. Marcus kept reading. March 19th. I tried to call Marcus today. Found his number in my old address book. But Donovan caught me. He took the phone. Broke it. Broke my hand too. I think some fingers are broken, but I can't tell anymore. Everything hurts. The words blurred. Marcus realized he was crying. July 8th. I have to leave. I know where Marcus's club is. I remember him telling me once years ago, Phoenix, South Desert Road. If I can just get there, if I can just make it to him, he'll be angry, he'll yell, but he'll help me. I know he will, because no matter what happened between us, he's still my son, and I'm still his mother. Blood doesn't forget. The journal fell from his hands. She'd carried this hope for months. The belief that if she could just reach him, her son who hadn't spoken to her in 15 years would help her. And she'd been right, but it had cost her everything. Iron. Gunner was in the doorway, his face grim. Razor found something. About Donovan Wade. About why your mother took him in. Marcus picked up the journal, held it like it was made of glass. Tell me. Donovan Wade served in Iraq, 2005 to 2007. Marines, 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines. Gunner paused. So did your father. The world stopped. What? Staff Sergeant Frank Sullivan. He died in Iraq, not Desert Storm like you thought. 2007. Official report says he was killed providing cover for his unit during an ambush. Saved 6 men. Another pause. One of those men was Donovan Wade. Marcus sat down on his mother's bed. The mattress was thin, hard, like sleeping on stone. My father saved his life. Yeah. And my mother adopted him to honor my father, to pay a debt she thought she owed. Looks that way. Marcus thought about the pictures in the living room. His mother smiling, Donovan looking clean cut, happy. When had it changed? When had gratitude turned into abuse? When had the man his father saved become the man who tortured Dorothy Sullivan for months? Razor found something else, Gunner said quietly. Wade's service record. He was discharged in 2008. Medical discharge. PTSD. Severe. He was in and out of VA hospitals for years. Suicide attempts. Violence, the works. My mother tried to fix him. Probably. And for a while, maybe it worked. But then, Gunner gestured at the room. The prison. Then it didn't. Marcus stood, looked around the room one more time. The prison his mother had lived in. The hell she'd endured because she thought she owed it to his father's memory. I need to see her again. Before we do anything else, I need to see her. She hadn't moved. Marcus sat in the same chair, holding the same cold hand, watching the same machines keep her alive. The doctor had said 72 hours were critical. That was tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow she might wake up, or she might slip away. I went to the house, Marcus said quietly. I saw what he did. I saw your room, the journal. The monitors hummed their steady rhythm. You wrote about me, about hoping I'd help you. And I did. You made it to me. His voice broke. But Mom, why didn't you call 15 years? You could have called any time. I would have, would he have, he wanted to believe that. Wanted to think that if she'd reached out, he would have swallowed his pride and answered. But he didn't know, and that uncertainty was eating him alive. I'm going to find him, Marcus continued. Donovan Wade, the man Dad saved, the man you adopted. I'm going to find him, and I'm going to make sure he pays for what he did to you. Her fingers twitched, just barely, just enough that Marcus almost thought he imagined it. But then it happened again. A small movement, deliberate. Mom, can you hear me? Nothing. But her hand was warmer now, just slightly. The nurse came in for a vitals check, saw Marcus, and smiled sadly. Any change? I don't know, maybe. Her hand moved. The nurse checked the monitors. Her brain activity is increasing. That's a good sign. She might be trying to wake up. What do I do? Talk to her. Let her know you're here. That's all you can do. When the nurse left, Marcus leaned closer to the bed. You always told me that Sullivan blood runs deep. Remember when I was a kid and I'd get in fights at school, you'd patch me up and tell me Sullivans don't quit. Sullivans don't run. He squeezed her hand gently. You didn't quit, Mom. You ran toward help, toward me, and I'm not going to let you down. Hours passed. Marcus didn't move, didn't eat, didn't sleep. Just sat and waited and prayed to a God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. Razor found him in the hallway nursing bad coffee from a vending machine. Got the full background on Wade, Razor said, holding up a folder. And Iron, you need to see this. They found an empty consultation room. Razor spread papers across the table. Donovan Wade, 52, Marines 2003 to 2008. Iraq deployment, 3 tours, honorable discharge medical, PTSD, major depressive disorder, substance abuse. Marcus scanned the documents. Service record, medical files, police reports. Wait, he's got priors. Nothing major, Razor said. Bar fights, drunk and disorderly. Did 30 days in county back in 2011 for assaulting a bartender. And look at this. He pulled out another document, 2019. Dorothy Sullivan took out a restraining order against him, then dropped it 2 weeks later. She tried to leave before and went back. Classic abuse pattern, Razor said. Marcus kept reading. There were hospital records going back years, Dorothy coming in with injuries, always with explanations, falls, accidents, clumsiness. No one had connected the dots. Or if they had, they hadn't done anything about it. Here's the thing, Razor said. Wade's VA benefits were tied to your mother's address. She was listed as his caretaker. He was receiving disability payments. About 3 grand a month. If she kicked him out, reported him, that money stopped. He was using her. Worse than that, look at this. Razor pulled out a will, Dorothy Sullivan's will, dated 2 years ago. Everything goes to Marcus Sullivan. The house, her savings, everything. Donovan Wade gets nothing. Marcus stared at the document. His name in black and white. She'd changed the will. And my guess, Razor said, Wade found out. That's when the abuse escalated. It all made horrible sense. A man with PTSD and addiction problems living off disability and his adoptive mother's generosity. Then finding out she was cutting him off, leaving him with nothing. The anger, the violence, the need to control. Where is he now? That's the question. His truck was spotted on traffic cameras heading east on E10 yesterday afternoon. Then nothing. He could be in New Mexico by now. Could be in Texas. Hell, could be in Mexico. Marcus crumpled the coffee cup in his fist. He's not running that far. Men like that, they don't run. They hide close, somewhere familiar. What are you thinking? I'm thinking he's a Marine combat vet. He knows how to survive in the field. And if he's got PTSD as bad as these records say, he's going somewhere that feels safe. The hospital or someplace from his past. Military buddies, old haunts. Marcus stood. I want every place Wade might go, every friend, every relative, every bar he drank at. I want it all. Iron, the cops are looking for him too. The cops don't have what I have. What's that? Marcus looked back toward the ICU, toward the room where his mother lay fighting for her life. Motivation. Marcus stood in the parking lot smoking a cigarette he'd bummed from a nurse. He'd quit 5 years ago. Didn't matter now. His phone buzzed. Text from Gunner. Church meeting tomorrow night. Brothers want to help. Marcus typed back. Tell them thanks. This is personal, but I won't turn down support. Another buzz. This one from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Sullivan, this is Dr. Thompson. Your mother's condition has stabilized. She's still critical, but showing signs of improvement. Thought you'd want to know. He read it 3 times. Stabilized. Improvement. Not out of the woods, but fighting. Just like she'd fought to escape, fought to reach him, fought to survive. Marcus flicking the cigarette away. Went back inside. Back to the ICU, back to the chair beside his mother's bed. I got good news, he said to her still form. You're stabilizing. Doctor says you're a fighter. I could have told him that. He settled into the chair. I've been thinking about that fight we had 15 years ago. You said I was throwing my life away. That Dad would be disappointed. Life support whispered and clicked in its mechanical rhythm. Maybe you were right. Maybe Dad would be disappointed. But you know what? He saved Donovan Wade. He died saving that piece of garbage. Marcus's voice got rough. And you honored that sacrifice by taking Wade in, by trying to help him. He wiped his eyes. Mom, look where it got you. Look what it cut. And I'm not Dad. I'm not a hero. I'm just a biker who's made more mistakes than he can count. But I'm your son. And I'm going to find the man who did this to you. And when I do, I'm going to make sure he can never hurt anyone again. The right way. Legal. Justice, not revenge. He didn't know if he believed that last part, but his mother would want him to try. I love you, Mom. I should have said that 15 years ago. Should have said it 1,000 times since. But I'm saying it now. I love you, and I'm not leaving you again. Outside, the desert night pressed against the windows. Inside, machines kept his mother alive, and somewhere out there, Donovan Wade was running. But Marcus Sullivan was patient. He'd learned that from 40 years of working on engines. Sometimes you had to take things apart piece by piece. Sometimes you had to wait for the right moment. And when that moment came, you didn't hesitate. You struck. The church room smelled like leather and motor oil and 30 years of decisions made in darkness. Marcus sat at the head of the long table, his position as chapter president marked by the gavel resting in front of him. Around him, 28 brothers, men who'd ridden with him through hell and back, men who'd buried their own and kept riding, men who understood that family meant something different when you wore the patch. Gunner sat to his right, Ghost to his left. The rest filled in the seats, their cuts displaying patches earned through blood and loyalty. These weren't weekend warriors playing dress-up. These were men who'd chosen this life and lived it completely. Marcus brought the gavel down once. The conversation stopped. "Most of you know why we're here," he said. His voice was rough from cigarettes and sleepless nights. "For those who don't, I'll make it simple. 3 days ago, my mother showed up at this clubhouse, beaten half to death. She's in ICU right now, 35% chance of survival. The man who did it is Donovan Wade, 52 years old, former Marine, my mother's adopted son." He nodded to Razor, who pulled up a photo on the screen mounted to the wall. Donovan Wade in his dress blues, clean cut, American flag behind him. He looked like every recruitment poster ever made. "This is what he looked like 15 years ago," Marcus continued. "This is what he looks like now." Another photo. Same man, different decade. Thinner, harder, eyes that had seen too much and showed it. Beard going gray, lines around his mouth that spoke of pain and anger held too long. Wade served 3 tours in Iraq, same battalion as my father. My father saved his life in 2007. Died doing it. My mother adopted Wade to honor that sacrifice. Marcus's jaw tightened, and Wade repaid her by turning her into a prisoner in her own home. Beat her, burned her, broke her bones, and locked her in a room like an animal. The silence in the room was absolute. These men understood violence, participated in it when necessary. But there were lines, and hurting an 80-year-old woman crossed every single one of them. "I'm not asking the club to get involved," Marcus said. "This is my blood, my responsibility. But I won't turn down help if it's offered." Gunner spoke up. "Brothers, this isn't club business, but Iron's been our president for 15 years, been a member for 28. That makes his blood our blood. I'm in." "Second," Ghost said. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. Ghost never spoke unless he had something to say. Hands went up around the table, one by one, every single member. Marcus felt something in his chest loosen. Just slightly. He was used to standing alone, used to carrying weight by himself, but this mattered. "All right," he said, "here's what we know." Razor took over, pulling up maps and documents on the screen. "Wade's truck was last seen on I-10 East 48 hours ago. That puts him somewhere between here and the New Mexico border. Traffic cameras lost him after Casa Grande. He's either ditched the truck or he's off the main roads. Military training," one of the members, Snake, pointed out. "He knows how to move without being seen." "Exactly. Which means we're not looking for someone running scared. We're looking for someone who's gone tactical. He's got survival training, knows how to live rough. And based on his service record, he's got experience in desert terrain." Ghost leaned forward. "Question is, where would he feel safe? Where's home base?" "That's what we need to figure out," Marcus said. "Razor, what else do we have?" VA records show he was in and out of treatment facilities for years. Last known treatment was at the Phoenix Fove Medical Center, but he stopped showing up 8 months ago. Before that, he was part of a PTSD support group, met weekly. I've got the name of the counselor who ran it. Good. We talked to the counselor, find out who Wade was close to who he might run to. Already set up a meeting for tomorrow, Razor said. 9 a.m. Marcus nodded. What about family? Parents are both dead, no siblings, no kids. The only family he had was your mother. The words hung in the air. The only family Wade had, and he destroyed it. Destroyed her. Friends, Marcus asked. That's where it gets interesting. Razor pulled up another document. Wade was part of a group called Desert Wolves. Veterans group. They meet at a VFW hall in Mesa. Monthly gatherings, camping trips, that sort of thing. Last known activity was 6 months ago. Wade was there. Names. I've got a list. Working on addresses now. Marcus studied the screen. A veterans group. Men who'd served. Men who understood the cost of war. Men who might help one of their own hide. Or men who might give him up if they knew what he'd done. We split into teams, Marcus said. Razor, you and I hit the counselor tomorrow. Gunner, you and Ghost track down these Desert Wolves members. Quiet. We're looking for information, not starting a war. Everyone else, you're on standby. If we get a location on Wade, I want to move fast. And when we find him, Gunner asked. Marcus met his eyes. We call the cops. We do this legal. Someone in the back, tiny, ironically 6'4" and 280, spoke up. Iron, with all due respect, that piece of shit deserves worse than a cell. I know, but I made a promise to my mother, no killing. We find him, we make sure he pays, but we do it right. Tiny nodded, but Marcus could see the skepticism, could see it in several faces around the table. These men didn't trust the system, didn't believe in justice that came with lawyers and judges and appeals. They believed in the kind of justice that left bodies in the desert. Marcus understood. He felt it too. The urge to find Donovan Wade and beat him to death with his bare hands. To make him feel every ounce of pain he'd inflicted on Dorothy Sullivan. But he'd made a promise. And Marcus Sullivan kept his promises, even when they hurt. Meeting adjourned, he said, bringing the gavel down. The members filed out, heading to the bar for beer and conversation. Marcus stayed in his seat, staring at Donovan Wade's photo on the screen. You think we'll find him? Gunner asked, hanging back. Yeah. He's not as smart as he thinks he is. None of them are. And when we do, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When we do, I'm going to look him in the eye and ask him why. Why my mother? Why like that? Why he couldn't just walk away? You think he'll answer? I think he'll try to justify it. They always do. Men like that, they've convinced themselves they're the victim, that the world owes them something, that their pain gives them permission. Gunner sat down. Iron, I've known you a long time, since before you were president. Before you were even patched in, and I've never seen you like this. Like what? Broken. The word hit hard because it was true. Marcus had survived prison, survived gang wars, survived loss and betrayal, and every kind of violence the world could throw at him. But this had broken something he didn't know could break. She came to me, Marcus said quietly. After 15 years of nothing, she walked God knows how many miles, beaten and bleeding, to find me, because she believed I'd help her. And you did. Barely. She almost died getting to me. Another 10 minutes. He didn't finish the sentence, couldn't. But she didn't. She's alive, fighting. For now. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from the hospital. His heart stopped. But it wasn't bad news. It was Dr. Thompson. Your mother is showing increased brain activity, still unconscious, but vital signs are improving. You should come when you can. She's getting better, Marcus said, showing Gunner the message. See, Sullivans don't quit. You said it yourself. Marcus stood. I'm going back to the hospital. You good here? Yeah, I'll make sure everyone knows their assignments. We'll start first thing tomorrow. Marcus headed for the door, then stopped. Gunner, Thank you for all of this. Brother, you don't thank family. You just show up. That's what we do. The ICU was quieter at night, fewer nurses on duty, fewer visitors, just the sound of machines and the occasional code being called over the intercom. Marcus had learned the rhythms of this place over the past 72 hours, knew which nurses were sympathetic and which ones stuck to the rules, knew where the good coffee was, knew that the chapel on the second floor stayed unlocked all night. He'd spent an hour there yesterday, didn't pray, didn't know how anymore, just sat in the silence and tried to make sense of everything that had happened. Dorothy's room was at the end of the hall, room 412. Marcus could walk there with his eyes closed now. The nurse at the station, Patricia, older woman with kind eyes, smiled when she saw him. Mr. Sullivan, your mother had a good day today. Yeah, her oxygen levels are up. Brain swelling is down. Dr. Thompson thinks she might wake up in the next 24 hours. 24 hours, one more day of waiting, of hoping, of sitting beside her and talking to a woman who couldn't answer. Can I see her? Of course, stay as long as you like. Marcus pushed open the door to 412. The equipment still hummed life support, still maintained its vigil, but Dorothy looked different, less pale, less like a corpse and more like a person sleeping. He pulled the chair close to her bed, sat down, took her hand. It was warmer now, definitely warmer. Hey, Mom, it's me again, Marcus, your son who can't seem to stay away. No response, but he swore her fingers moved, just slightly, like she knew he was there. I met with the club tonight, told them what happened. They want to help. 28 brothers all ready to turn this state upside down looking for Wade. He paused. I know what you'd say. You'd tell me to let the police handle it, to trust the system. But Mom, the system let you down. You were in that house for months and nobody helped. Nobody saw, or maybe they saw and didn't want to get involved. He thought about the medical records, the restraining order she'd filed and dropped, the neighbors who must have heard something. I'm going to find him, Marcus continued, but I'm doing it your way, legal, by the book, no revenge, just justice. The words still felt wrong in his mouth, like speaking a language he didn't fully understand. I hope that's enough for you. I hope when you wake up, you'll be proud of how I handled this. The monitors hummed, life support whispered, and then so quietly he almost missed it, a sound, a breath that didn't come from the machine. Marcus leaned closer. Mom. Her eyelids fluttered. Mom, can you hear me? Another flutter, and then slowly, painfully, her eyes opened. Just a crack, just enough to see. Marcus's heart stopped. Mom, oh my God, Mom, you're awake. She tried to speak, but the ventilator tube prevented it. Her eyes moved panicked, confused. It's okay. It's okay. Don't try to talk. Let me get the nurse. He hit the call button, kept holding her hand, kept his eyes locked on hers. You're safe. You're in the hospital. You're going to be okay. She blinked, once, deliberately. Patricia rushed in, saw Dorothy awake, and immediately went into professional mode. Mr. Sullivan, I need you to step back. But I know, this is good, very good, but I need to examine her, please. Marcus stepped back, but didn't leave the room. Watched as Patricia checked vitals, shined a light in Dorothy's eyes, asked her to blink once for yes and twice for no. Dorothy blinked, following instructions, understanding. I'm going to page Dr. Thompson, Patricia said. This is excellent news, Mr. Sullivan. She's neurologically responsive. That's the best sign we could hope for. Dr. Thompson arrived within minutes, ran the same tests, asked more complex questions. Dorothy responded to all of them. Finally, he turned to Marcus. Your mother is awake and aware. We'll need to keep the ventilator in for now. Her lungs aren't strong enough yet, but her brain function appears intact. This is remarkable given the severity of her injuries. Can I talk to her? Yes, but keep it brief. She needs rest. When they left, Marcus returned to the bedside. Dorothy's eyes followed him, tracked his movement. She was in there, really in there. "Hey," he said softly, "you gave me a hell of a scare." She blinked once. "Yes. Do you remember what happened? Do you remember coming to the clubhouse?" One blink. "Yes. Do you know who I am?" She blinked once. Then her eyes filled with tears. Marcus felt his own eyes burning. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for all of it. For 15 years, for not being there, for leaving you alone with that monster." She shook her head, just barely. The motion must have hurt like hell, but she did it anyway. "You're telling me not to apologize." One blink. "Mom, I have to. I left you alone and look what happened. I should have called, should have checked on you, should have." She shook her head again, more firmly this time. Marcus stopped, took a breath. "Okay, okay, no apologies, but I need you to know I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Not ever again." One blink, long and slow. "And I'm going to find him. Donovan Wade. I'm going to find him and make sure he pays for what he did to you." Her eyes went wide, panicked. She tried to shake her head, but the pain stopped her. "Mom, what's wrong?" She couldn't speak, couldn't write, could only blink and hope he understood. Marcus tried to read her, tried to understand what she was trying to say. "You don't want me to find him." Two blinks. "No, you do want me to find him." One blink. "But you're scared. You're scared of what I'll do." One blink. Then tears streaming down her face. Marcus understood. She knew him, knew the violence he was capable of, knew that despite his promises when he found Donovan Wade, all that rage might come pouring out. "I promised you I wouldn't kill him," Marcus said. "I meant it. I'm doing this legal, by the book, I swear to you." She held his gaze for a long moment, then blinked once. Trust. She was choosing to trust him. "I love you, Mom. I should have said it 15 years ago. I'm saying it now." Her fingers squeezed his hand, weak but deliberate. She couldn't say it back. Not yet. But he felt it anyway. The counselor's name was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, 48 years old, clinical psychologist specializing in PTSD and substance abuse. She'd been running veteran support groups at the Phoenix Farm A for 12 years. She met Marcus and Razor in a small office that smelled like coffee and paper. Books lined the walls. Certificates and degrees hung beside photos of her with various veteran groups. "Thank you for seeing us," Marcus said. Dr. Mitchell gestured to the chairs across from her desk. "When Detective Reeves called and explained the situation, I wanted to help however I could, though I'm limited in what I can share due to confidentiality. We understand we're not asking you to violate any trust. We just need to know where Donovan Wade might go, who he might reach out to." Dr. Mitchell folded her hands on her desk. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm going to be frank with you. Donovan Wade is a deeply troubled man. The trauma he experienced in Iraq combined with survivor's guilt and substance abuse, he's been fighting a losing battle for years. That doesn't excuse what he did to my mother. No, it doesn't. Nothing excuses that. But understanding the why might help you find the where." Marcus leaned forward. "So help me understand." Dr. Mitchell pulled out a file. "I can't show you this, but I can tell you generally what's in it. Donovan came to me 7 years ago, court-ordered after an assault charge. He was drinking heavily, using pills, having violent nightmares. Classic PTSD presentation. Did he get better? For a while. He was attending group regularly, taking his medication, working with your mother in what he described as a supportive environment. But about 2 years ago, something changed. He started missing sessions. When he did show up, he was agitated, paranoid, talking about feeling trapped. That's when my mother got sick, when she changed her will." Dr. Mitchell nodded slowly. "Financial stressors can exacerbate mental health issues. If Donovan felt like he was losing his support system, his safe place, that could trigger a severe episode. You're making excuses for him. I'm explaining the psychology. There's a difference. What Donovan did is unforgivable. But if you want to find him, you need to understand how he thinks, where his mind goes when he's in crisis. Razor spoke up. Doc, in your professional opinion, where would someone like Wade go when he runs? Dr. Mitchell thought about it. Somewhere familiar, somewhere that represents safety or comfort. For veterans with PTSD, that's often a place connected to their service or to a time before the trauma. He doesn't have family, no close friends we can find. What about his unit, the men he served with? We're tracking that down, but it's been 17 years since his last deployment. Check the Desert Wolves. That's the veterans group he was part of. They did camping trips, wilderness survival exercises. Donovan talked about them frequently, said they were the only people who understood him. Marcus made a note. We've got a list of members. Inshawayi stand on. Dr. Mitchell hesitated. There was one man, Robert Castellano, former Marine, served with Donovan in Iraq. Lost both legs to an IED in 2006. Donovan visited him regularly, talked about him like a brother. You have an address? No, but I know Robert lives somewhere in the White Mountains, near Pinetop Lakeside. Donovan mentioned it once, said it was beautiful up there, peaceful. The White Mountains, 3 hours northeast of Phoenix, dense forest, rural, dozens of places to hide. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell, this helps. As they stood to leave, the counselor spoke again. Mr. Sullivan, one more thing. Donovan is dangerous right now, not just because of what he did to your mother, but because of where his head is. He knows what he's done, knows there's no coming back from it. Men in that state, they're unpredictable. If you find him, don't approach alone. I'll have people with me. Good. And Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry about your mother. From what Donovan said about her, she's a remarkable woman. Marcus nodded, didn't trust himself to speak. The drive up the Mogollon Rim was beautiful in a way that made Marcus uncomfortable. He'd spent his whole life in the desert. Flat land, cacti, heat that could kill you. This was different. Pine trees, cool air, mountains that touched the sky. It felt wrong, like he was driving into someone else's world. Gunner drove the lead truck. Marcus rode passenger. Ghost and Razor followed in a second vehicle. 4 of them. Enough to handle trouble, but not so many they looked like an invading army. They'd spent the morning tracking down Robert Castellano. Property records showed he owned 15 acres outside Pinetop Lakeside. Remote, no neighbors for miles. Perfect place to hide someone. You think he's there? Gunner asked. Only one way to find out. They passed through Pinetop, a small mountain town that looked like something from a postcard. Tourists in their summer cabins, kids fishing in the lake. The kind of place Marcus had never understood the appeal of. Turn here, Razor said over the radio, reading from GPS. They left the main road, took a dirt track that wound through pines and aspens. After 2 miles, they saw a cabin. Small, log construction, solar panels on the roof, a wheelchair ramp leading to the front door. One vehicle in the driveway, an old pickup, not Donovan's. Park here, Marcus said. We walk the rest. They left the trucks a quarter-mile back and approached on foot. Marcus took point, Gunner right behind him. Ghost and Razor flanked wide, covering angles. As they got closer, Marcus saw a man in a wheelchair on the cabin's porch. 50s, gray beard, no legs below the knees. He was cleaning a rifle. That's far enough. The man's voice carried authority, military authority. Marcus stopped, raised his hands. Robert Castellano. Who's asking? Marcus Sullivan, I'm looking for Donovan Wade. The man's expression didn't change. Don't know him. Yes, you do. You served with him. Iraq, 2006. Your brothers. Castellano set the rifle across his lap. Didn't point it, didn't need to. The threat was clear. A lot of men served with me, don't remember them all. You remember Donovan, he visits you, talks about you like family. What do you want with him? Marcus took a step forward, slowly, non-threatening. He beat my mother half to death, put her in a coma. I want to make sure he faces justice for that. Castellano's expression flickered. Just for a second, surprise, maybe disgust. Donovan wouldn't do that. He did. I have hospital records, police reports, medical evidence that shows months of abuse. The woman who took him in, who gave him a home, who tried to help him, he tortured her. You're lying. I wish I was. Gunnar stepped forward. Mr. Castellano, we're not here to cause trouble. We just need to know if Wade contacted you, if he's been here. Castellano looked at them. Four men in leather cuts standing in his driveway asking about his brother in arms. He had to know they weren't leaving without answers. He called me, Castellano said finally, 3 days ago, middle of the night, said he was in trouble, said he'd done something terrible and needed a place to think. Is he here? No, I told him he couldn't come. Told him if he was running from the law, I couldn't be part of it. I've got grandkids. I can't risk that. Marcus believed him, saw the truth in his eyes. Did he say where he was going? Castellano hesitated. There's a place up in the National Forest, old fire lookout tower, abandoned for years. Donovan and I used to camp up there. Said it was the only place he felt at peace. Where? I can show you on a map. But listen to me. If Donovan's up there, he's not thinking straight. He's got guns. He knows the terrain. And if he's as guilty as you say, he might not come down alive. Marcus met his eyes. I'm not planning to kill him. I'm planning to bring him in. Legal. You expect me to believe that four bikers tracking a man who hurt one of their own? My mother made me promise. No killing, just justice, and I keep my promises. Castellano studied him for a long moment, then wheeled himself into the cabin, came back with a topographic map. Here, he said, pointing to a spot marked in pencil. Tower's about 8 miles in, no road access. You'll have to hike, and the weather up there can turn fast. You go now, you've got maybe 4 hours of daylight. Marcus took a photo of the map. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm doing this for Donovan. If what you say is true, he needs help. Real help, not a bullet. He'll get it, one way or another. Before they left, Castellano called out, Sullivan? Marcus turned. Your mother. The woman who took Donovan in. You said she was trying to help him. Yeah. Castellano was quiet for a moment. Donovan talked about her sometimes. In group. Said she was the best person he had ever known. Said she reminded him of why some things are worth fighting for. He paused. What happened to him? What turned him into someone who could do that? Marcus thought about the journal, the slow descent from gratitude to resentment to rage. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask him when I find him. The hike was brutal. 8 miles doesn't sound like much until you're doing it at 7,000 feet elevation through terrain that went from gentle slopes to near vertical climbs. Marcus's legs burned, his lungs ached, but he kept moving, kept putting one foot in front of the other. They didn't talk, saved their breath, communicated with hand signals when necessary. 4 men moving through the forest like ghosts. After 3 hours, Ghost held up a fist. Stop. Marcus moved up beside him. What is it? Ghost pointed. Through the trees, maybe half a mile ahead, a structure rose above the canopy. The fire lookout tower. Wooden, old. Probably hadn't been maintained in 20 years. And at the base, parked in the trees, a truck. Marcus pulled out binoculars, focused on the license plate. Donovan Wade's truck. He's here, Marcus said quietly. Gunnar checked his phone, no signal. They were too deep in the mountains. So what's the plan? Razor asked. Good question. They'd found Wade. Now what Marcus had promised to do this legal. Call the cops. Let them handle it. But they were miles from civilization, no cell service. By the time they hiked back out and called it in, Wade could be gone. "We approach," Marcus said. "Carefully, we talk to him, get him to come down peacefully. And if he doesn't," Marcus didn't have a good answer for that. They moved closer, slow, using the trees for cover. As they got within 100 yards of the tower, Marcus saw movement at the top, a figure standing at the railing, looking out over the forest. Donovan Wade. Even from this distance, Marcus could see the changes. The man in Dr. Mitchell's file photo had looked haunted but functional. The man on that tower looked broken, gaunt, shoulders slumped like he was carrying the weight of the world. Marcus stepped out from the trees, alone. Donovan Wade. His voice echoed through the forest. The figure at the top of the tower spun around, looked down. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Wade's voice drifted down, rough, exhausted. "Who are you?" "Marcus Sullivan, Dorothy's son." A long silence. "She's alive." "Barely, no thanks to you." Another silence. Then, "I didn't mean to, I didn't want." "Come down, we need to talk." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I know what happens if I come down. I know what I've done. I know there's no fixing this." Marcus took a breath, forced himself to stay calm. "Then let's talk up there. I'm coming up." "Don't. Please just go. Call the cops. Tell them I'm here, but don't come up." "I'm coming up, Wade. You can try to stop me or you can let me. Your choice." Marcus started toward the tower. Behind him, Gunnar hissed, "Iron, this is a bad idea." Maybe, probably. But Marcus had come too far to turn back now. The tower stairs were rickety, wood rotted in places, but they held his weight, barely. As he climbed, Marcus kept his hands visible. No weapons, no threat. He reached the top. The platform was small, maybe 10 by 10 feet. Donovan Wade stood at the far edge back to the railing. Up close, the man looked worse. Unshaved, unwashed, eyes red-rimmed. He had a gun tucked into his belt. Hadn't drawn it. "You shouldn't have come up here," Wade said. "Had to. Need to look you in the eye. Need to understand why you did what you did to my mother." Wade's face twisted. Pain, shame, anger. "Your mother. She tell you everything about me. I know my father saved your life. I know she took you in to honor that. And I know you repaid her by beating her, burning her, locking her in a room like an animal. I was trying to help her." Marcus felt rage surge. "Help her! You broke her bones! You—" "She was sick." Wade's voice cracked. "Cancer 2 years ago. I took care of her. Every day. Drove her to appointments. Held her hand during chemo. I loved her. Like a real mother, and then she got better and changed the will. Left everything to you, the son who abandoned her, who hadn't called in 15 years. And I had nothing. I gave her everything, and she chose you." There it was, the ugly truth beneath all the violence, jealousy, resentment, the feeling of being replaced. "So you beat her." "I didn't. It wasn't like that at first. I just got angry, started drinking more, and the anger it got worse. Every time I looked at her, I saw your father. Saw him dying, saw the moment he chose to save me instead of saving himself. And I thought I owed Dorothy everything. But she didn't want me. She wanted you." Marcus stepped closer. "My father died saving you, and you turned into this. You think he'd be proud?" Wade's face crumpled. "I think about that every day. Every single day. I killed him. Friendly fire. I panicked, and I shot into the dark, and I hit our own men. And Frank Sullivan died covering for my mistake." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "What? You didn't know Dorothy knew. I told her. That's why she took me in. Not just because Frank saved me, but because she felt guilty. Because if I hadn't panicked, Frank would still be alive. She thought she could save me, fix me, Make Frank's death mean something. Marcus's legs felt weak. He sat down on the platform edge. His father hadn't died a hero's death. He died cleaning up someone else's mistake. She tried so hard, Wade continued. Therapy, medication, support, and for a while it worked. But then the cancer, then the will, and I just couldn't take it. All that guilt, all that debt I could never repay, and then being cast aside like I was nothing. You were never nothing to her. She loved you. Not enough. Not like she loved you, even after 15 years, even after you walked away. You were always first. Wade pulled the gun from his belt. Marcus tensed, but Wade didn't point it, just held it, looked at it. I thought about it, Wade said quietly. Ending it up here, alone, just stopping. But I'm too much of a coward. Put the gun down, Donovan. Why, so you can beat me to death, so your biker friends down there can make me disappear. I know how this works. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to bring you in. Legal. You're going to face trial, face justice. Justice. Wade laughed. Bitter. Broken. There's no justice for what I've done. To Dorothy, to your father, to myself. Maybe not, but that's not your call to make. My mother deserves to see you answer for this. The right way. Wade looked at him, really looked. She's really alive. Yeah, woke up last night. Can't talk yet, but she's in there fighting. Tears ran down Wade's face. I didn't want to kill her. I don't even know what I wanted anymore. Then help me understand. Come down. Talk to the police. Face what you did. Wade stared out over the forest. The sun was starting to set, painting everything gold and red. Your father was a good man, he said. Best man I ever knew. When I was dying in that street, when bullets were flying everywhere, he came back. He didn't have to. He could have run, should have run, but he came back. And the last thing he said to me was, "You're going to be okay. You're going to live." Wade turned to Marcus. I lived, but I never figured out how to make that life worth what Frank gave up. You can start now by doing the right thing. For a long moment, Wade just stood there, gun in his hand, forest spreading out below him, the sun setting on what might be his last day of freedom. Then slowly he set the gun down on the platform, stepped away from it. Okay, he said, okay, I'll come. Marcus picked up the gun, emptied the magazine, threw both over the edge of the tower. The sound of metal hitting rocks echoed up through the trees. Let's go, he said. They climbed down together, Wade in front, Marcus behind. At the bottom, Gunner, Ghost, and Razor waited, tense, ready. Three men who'd been preparing for a fight and found surrender instead. It's okay, Marcus said. He's coming in peaceful. Wade stood there, hands at his sides, looking at these four men who had every reason to hurt him. Every reason and every opportunity. I'm sorry, he said. The words came out broken. For what I did, for all of it. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. Marcus pulled rope from Gunner's pack. Tied Wade's hands, not tight enough to hurt, just secure. We got a long walk back, he said. Let's move while we still have light. 8 miles back through mountain forest with a prisoner. The sun dropping fast behind the pines, temperature falling with every step. 4 bikers and 1 broken Marine walking single file down a trail that disappeared into shadows. Wade didn't speak, just walked. His breathing labored at this altitude, stumbled sometimes over roots he couldn't see in the fading light. Marcus caught him once when he nearly went down. Wade looked at him with something like surprise, like he'd expected to be left face down in the dirt. Keep moving, was all Marcus said. The forest grew darker, colder, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones when you've been walking for hours. Marcus's legs ached, his shoulders burned from the climb, but he kept the pace steady, relentless. Behind him, Ghost moved like his namesake, silent, watchful. Razor brought up the rear, occasionally checking their six. Old cop habits died hard. By the time they reached the trucks, full dark had settled over the mountains. Stars appearing overhead, one by one. The Milky Way visible in a way it never was in Phoenix. Too much light pollution down there, too much civilization. What now? Gunner asked, securing Wade in the back of the second truck with Ghost standing guard. Now we call Reeves. Tell her we found him. Tell her he's surrendering. Marcus pulled out his phone. Still no signal this deep in the mountains. They'd have to drive until they hit coverage. It took 20 minutes of winding down dark mountain roads before bars appeared. Marcus pulled over, dialed. Reeves, it's Marcus Sullivan. I've got Donovan Wade. He's in custody, willing to surrender. A pause, long enough that Marcus could hear her thinking, calculating, deciding how much trouble to give him. Excuse me, I found him. White Mountains. Fire Lookout Tower. He surrendered peacefully. Where are you right now, Mr. Sullivan? Coming down from Pine Top. Maybe an hour outside Phoenix. Bring him to the North Precinct. I'll meet you there. Her voice dropped, the cop edge sharpening. And Sullivan, if he's hurt, if there is any evidence of coercion or violence. He's fine, not a scratch. We talked. He agreed to come in. That's the whole story. We'll see about that. She hung up. Gunner was watching him. You think she believes you? Doesn't matter what she believes. Wade's in one piece. He'll confirm everything. Marcus looked back at the second truck. Won't you, Wade? No answer from the darkness, just silence. They drove. Phoenix lights eventually appearing on the horizon like a false dawn. The desert spreading out flat and endless under the stars. Marcus thought about calling the hospital, checking on his mother, but it was late. She'd be sleeping, or trying to, and what would he say? I found him, Mom. I kept my promise. I didn't kill him. Would that be enough? Would anything ever be enough to make up for 15 years of silence? Iron, Ghost's voice over the radio, calm, always calm. Wade wants to talk to you. Marcus picked up the walkie. What? Says he needs to tell you something. Before we get to the police. Before lawyers get involved. Marcus considered. Every instinct said no. Said keep driving. Hand him over. Be done with it. But something in Ghost's voice made him reconsider. Pull over. They stopped on the shoulder of Highway 60. Middle of nowhere. Just desert and darkness and the occasional semi-blasting past making the trucks shudder. Marcus got out, walked to the second truck, opened the back door. Wade sat there, hands still tied, looking smaller than he had on that tower. Less dangerous, more human, more broken. What do you want to say? Wade took a breath, released it slowly. Your mother, the journal she kept. Did you read it? Yeah, all of it. Enough. Then you know about the room, the locks, everything I did. He couldn't meet Marcus's eyes. But there's something she didn't write. Something she couldn't write because it would have made it too real. Marcus waited, said nothing. I loved her. Wade's voice cracked. Really loved her. Not just gratitude for taking me in. Real love. Like a son loves a mother. And that made what I did so much worse. Because I knew it was wrong. Every single time I hurt her, I knew. And I did it anyway. Marcus still said nothing. Let the silence stretch. When she was sick, the cancer, I was there every day. Wade's eyes were wet now. Held her hand during chemo. Brought her food when she couldn't eat. Sat with her at 3 a.m. when the pain was too bad to sleep. And I told myself that made up for it. That if I could save Dorothy, it would balance the scales. Would make Frank's death mean something. But she didn't need saving. She beat the cancer. Yeah. And then I found out about the will. Wade's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Found out she was leaving everything to you. The son who abandoned her. Who hadn't called in 15 years. And something broke in me. All that care, all that sacrifice, and she still chose you. I couldn't understand it. You wanted to be chosen. I wanted to matter to someone. Your father died because of me, because I panicked. 17 years I've lived with that. 17 years of wondering why I got to live when better men died. And Dorothy gave me an answer. She made me feel like maybe Frank's sacrifice wasn't wasted, like maybe I could be worth something. Wade looked up, met Marcus's eyes for the first time. But then she changed the will, and I realized she never really chose me. She took me in out of guilt, out of obligation to Frank. And when she didn't need that anymore, when she could go back to her real son, I was disposable. I was nothing again. Marcus listened, heard the pain, the twisted logic, the way trauma and guilt and survivor's guilt had warped this man into something unrecognizable. You were never disposable to her, Marcus said quietly. She loved you. Maybe not the way you wanted, maybe not enough, but she loved you, and you destroyed that. I know. Do you really understand what you took from her? Not just her health, not just her safety. You took her dignity. You made her afraid in her own home, made her a prisoner, an 80-year-old woman who spent her whole life helping people, and you made her final years a living hell. Wade was crying now, silent tears running down his face. I can't take it back. I can't undo any of it. And I know you want me dead. I know you want to make me suffer. And you should. God knows I deserve it. Marcus stared at him. This broken man who'd destroyed his mother, who'd lived off her kindness and repaid it with violence. Every instinct screamed to hurt him, to make him feel a fraction of what Dorothy had felt. But he'd made a promise. I don't want you dead, Marcus said. His voice was cold, final. I want you to live. I want you to spend the next 15 years in a cell thinking about what you did, thinking about the woman who loved you despite everything and how you repaid that love. I want you to wake up every morning and remember, and I want you to know that she survived you, that you tried to break her and failed. Wade looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. She's really going to make it. Yeah, and she'll testify against you. She'll stand in a courtroom and tell everyone what you did, and you'll have to sit there and listen. That's justice. That's what you've earned. Marcus slammed the door, walked back to his truck. His hands were shaking from anger, from restraint, from the effort of not doing what every fiber of his being wanted to do. Gunnar was waiting by the driver's side. You good? No, but I will be. Marcus looked back at the truck holding Wade. Let's get this piece of shit to the police before I change my mind. Detective Reeves was waiting in the parking lot with 4 uniformed officers and enough floodlights to land a plane. She watched as they pulled up, watched as Marcus and Ghost pulled Wade out of the truck. She approached slowly, carefully, like she was approaching a crime scene. Mr. Wade, her voice was professional, detached. Are you injured? No, ma'am. Did these men threaten you, coerce you in any way, force you to come here against your will? No, I came willingly. Reeves looked at Marcus, really looked, searching for something, evidence, guilt, anything. How did you find him? Talked to people who knew him, tracked him to a fire tower in the White Mountains. He surrendered without incident. Just like that. Just like that. She didn't believe him. Marcus could see it in her eyes, in the way she walked around Wade checking his wrists where the rope had been looking for bruises for marks. But Wade was clean, unharmed, and unless Wade said otherwise, there was nothing she could do. Mr. Wade, you're under arrest for aggravated assault with serious injury, domestic violence, elder abuse, and false imprisonment. She pulled out handcuffs, started reading Miranda. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Wade listened, nodded, let them cuff him, let them walk him to a patrol car. Before they put him in the back seat, he turned, looked at Marcus one more time. "Tell her I'm sorry," Wade said. "Please, just tell her that." Marcus said nothing, just watched as they drove Wade away. Watched until the taillights disappeared into Phoenix traffic. "Mr. Sullivan." Reeves stood beside him. "That was incredibly stupid what you did. If Wade had been armed, if things had gone differently, if he'd decided to fight, but he didn't. Next time you might not be so lucky. And next time I'll charge you with obstruction of justice." "There won't be a next time. Wade's in custody. Case closed." "Case closed," Reeves repeated. She studied him for a long moment. "You know what, I've been doing this job for 22 years. I've seen a lot of men like you. Men who think they're above the law. Men who think justice is whatever they decide it is. And most of them end up in cells next to the people they were hunting." She paused. "But you actually kept your word. You brought him in alive, unharmed. That takes more strength than most people have. I made a promise to my mother. Your mother is a lucky woman to have a son who keeps his promises even when it hurts. No, detective, I'm the lucky one. Took me 15 years to figure that out." Marcus drove straight from the precinct to the hospital. Didn't go home. Didn't stop. Just drove through the night with the windows down and the desert air rushing past. The ICU was quiet. Night shift in full swing. Most visitors long gone. Just the sound of machines and the soft conversations of nurses at their stations. Patricia saw him coming down the hall, smiled that sad knowing smile she had. "Mr. Sullivan, your mother's been asking for you all evening." "Asking, she can talk now. They removed the ventilator this afternoon. Her voice is weak, but yes, she can speak." Patricia's smile widened. "She's doing remarkably well. Dr. Thompson is calling it a miracle." Marcus felt something in his chest loosen, a knot he hadn't known was there. She could talk. She was really coming back. He pushed open the door to 412. Dorothy was sitting up in bed, still pale, still bruised, but her eyes were clear, alert, alive. She turned her head when she heard the door, saw him, and smiled. "Marcus." Her voice was barely above a whisper, rough from the ventilator, but it was her voice. "You're here." "Yeah, Mom." He pulled the chair close, took her hand. It was warm now, strong. "I'm here." "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck." A weak laugh. "But alive. Very alive." They sat in silence for a moment. So much to say. Too much. 15 years of silence between them, and now she could finally speak, and Marcus didn't know where to start. "I found him," he said finally. "Donovan, he's in police custody. It's over." Dorothy's expression didn't change much, just a small nod. "Did you hurt him?" "No, I wanted to. God, I wanted to, but I kept my promise. We talked. He surrendered, that's all." "What did he say?" "A lot of things. About Dad, about you, about why he did what he did." Marcus paused, studied her face. "Mom, is it true about Dad?" The friendly fire. Dorothy closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you needed to believe your father was a hero." She took a breath. Speaking was hard. And he was. Frank knew the risks. He knew Donovan panicked. And he went back anyway. That's what made him a hero. Not how he died, but why. "And Donovan, you took him in because you felt guilty." "I took him in because Frank would have wanted me to." Another breath. "Because that boy and he was a boy, then Marcus was drowning in guilt, in trauma. I thought I could help. Until you couldn't. Until the cancer. Until I changed the will. Until he realized I was always going to choose you." She squeezed his hand, weak but deliberate. "And I did choose you, even when you weren't there. Even when we didn't speak. You were always my son. Donovan was my responsibility, but you were my heart. Marcus felt the tears coming, didn't fight them this time, just let them fall. I'm sorry, Mom, for leaving, for staying for all of it. I'm sorry, too, for pushing you, for not accepting your choices, for making you feel like you had to choose between me and your life. I should have called. I should have called. She smiled. You're both stubborn fools, Sullivan blood. They talked for another hour, slowly, Dorothy's voice gaining strength with each passing minute, talking about everything, about nothing, about the 15 years they'd lost and the time they had left. Eventually, a nurse came in. Mr. Sullivan, your mother really needs rest now. Just 5 more minutes. The nurse looked at Dorothy. Dorothy gave a small nod. The nurse left. They're moving me out of ICU tomorrow, Dorothy said, to a regular room. Dr. Thompson says I'm recovering faster than anyone expected. You're tough, always have been. I had to be. Raising you alone. She smiled. You were a handful. Still am. I know. But you're a good man, Marcus. Despite everything. Despite the choices I didn't agree with. You're good. Your father would be proud. You think, I know, because I am. Those words. 4 simple words. But they hit harder than anything Wade could have done with his fists. Harder than 15 years of silence. Harder than all the regret and anger and pride. I am proud. Get some rest, Mom. I'll be back tomorrow. Marcus, she caught his hand as he stood, held it with surprising strength. Thank you for finding him, for not killing him, for keeping your promise. I learned from the best. A stubborn old woman who never gives up on anyone, even when they deserve it, especially then. 3 months later, the courtroom was packed beyond capacity, press jammed in the back rows. Victims' rights advocates, curious onlookers, members of Marcus's club filling one entire side. And in the front row, Marcus sat beside his mother. Dorothy looked transformed. Her hair, now silver white, had been cut into a practical, short style. The bruises were long gone. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost. She walked with a cane, but she walked. She was alive. On the other side of the courtroom, Donovan Wade sat at the defense table. Orange jumpsuit, shackles on his wrists and ankles. His lawyer, a tired-looking public defender named Morris, sat beside him, shuffling papers with the resignation of a man who knew he'd already lost. The charges were severe. Aggravated assault causing serious physical injury, elder abuse, false imprisonment, domestic violence with a pattern of abuse, each charge carrying years. Combined, Wade was looking at 18 to 20 years. The judge, Harriet Morrison, 62 years old, 23 years on the bench, called the court to order. Mr. Wade, you've entered a plea of guilty to all charges. Is that correct? Wade stood. His lawyer rose with him. Yes, Your Honor. And you understand the severity of these charges? The potential sentence you're facing? Yes, ma'am, I understand. Very well. Judge Morrison looked down at her notes. Before I pass sentence, I'm going to hear victim impact statements. Miss Sullivan, I understand you wish to address the court. Dorothy stood. Marcus moved to help her, but she shook her head. She wanted to do this herself, needed to. The bailiff brought a chair to the podium, set it beside the microphone. A small concession to her age, her injuries. Dorothy sat, gripped the edges of the podium, looked up at the judge. Your Honor, my name is Dorothy Sullivan. I'm 80 years old, and I'm going to keep this brief because my body may be mending, but it's not what it used to be. A soft chuckle from the gallery. Even the judge smiled slightly. For 8 months, I was held prisoner in my own home, beaten, burned, broken by a man I took in as my son, a man I loved, a man I tried to save. Her voice was stronger now than it had been 3 months ago, clear, steady, full of a quiet strength that filled the courtroom. I'm not here to tell you how much I suffered. The medical records speak for themselves. The photographs speak for themselves. I'm here to tell you about the man who did this to me. She turned in her chair, looked directly at Donovan Wade. He couldn't meet her eyes, stared at the table in front of him. Donovan Wade is not evil. He's sick. He's a veteran who saw terrible things, did terrible things in service to this country. He came home with wounds we can't see, wounds that never healed. And instead of getting the help he desperately needed, he self-medicated with alcohol, with anger, with violence. Marcus tensed. Where was she going with this? I'm not making excuses for what he did. There are no excuses. But I want this court to understand something. Donovan didn't start out as a monster. He became one. Slowly, painfully. And that transformation is as much a failure of our society, Oli, as it is his personal failure. The courtroom was absolutely silent now, everyone leaning forward, hanging on every word. Your Honor, I'm not asking for leniency. What Donovan did to me is unforgivable. But I am asking that whatever sentence you impose includes mandatory treatment, real treatment, PTSD counseling, substance abuse programs, anger management. If he's going to spend the next 15 or 20 years in prison, let him spend it becoming the man my husband died trying to save. She turned back to Wade, her voice softened, just slightly. Donovan, you took 8 months of my life. You took my sense of safety, my trust in people, my belief that the world is fundamentally good, and I will never forgive you for that. Never. Wade's shoulders shook. He was crying silently. But I don't hate you. I pity you because you had a chance to honor Frank's sacrifice, to be the man he believed you could be when he died covering for your mistake, and you threw it away. You chose violence. You chose anger. You chose self-pity over healing. Dorothy's voice grew stronger, filled the courtroom. Now you have to live with that. For the rest of your life, you have to live knowing you became exactly what Frank died to prevent. You became the monster, and no amount of time in prison will ever change that fact. She gripped the podium harder. But you can try. You can use your time wisely. You can get help. You can face your demons. You can become better. And when you get out, if you get out, you can be the man Frank Sullivan believed you were worth dying for. That's the only way his death will have meant anything. That's the only redemption available to you now. Dorothy released the podium. Marcus helped her stand, helped her walk back to her seat. The courtroom remained silent. Even the press had stopped scribbling notes. Judge Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. Ms. Sullivan, that was one of the most remarkable statements I've heard in 23 years on this bench. More gracious than most people could manage. More compassionate than anyone would expect. She looked at Wade. Mr. Wade, I hope you understand what a gift you have just been given. What an extraordinary woman Dorothy Sullivan is, and what you threw away. Wade nodded, still couldn't speak. Having said that, Judge Morrison's voice hardened. This court takes elder abuse with extreme seriousness. The vulnerable members of our society deserve protection. And when that protection fails, when someone violates that sacred trust, justice must be served. Swift, certain, uncompromising. She looked down at her notes, then back up at Wade. Donovan Wade, I hereby sentence you to 15 years in the Arizona Department of Corrections. You will be required to complete a comprehensive PTSD treatment program, a substance abuse counseling program, and an anger management program. Failure to complete any of these programs will result in automatic denial of parole eligibility. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Wade's voice was barely audible. Additionally, you are permanently barred from any contact with Dorothy Sullivan or any member of her family. You will immediately surrender any claim to her estate, her property, or her possessions. And upon your release, if you are released, you will be subject to 5 years of supervised probation with mandatory mental health treatment. The gavel came down, sharp, final. Court is adjourned. Guards moved to take Wade away. As they walked him past Dorothy's row, he stopped, looked at her one final time. "I'm sorry," he said, tears streaming down his face. "I know it doesn't mean anything, but I'm so sorry." Dorothy looked at him, really looked. And for just a moment, Marcus saw the woman who'd taken in a broken young Marine 15 years ago. The woman who'd tried to save him. "It means something, Donovan. Not enough, but something. Don't waste this chance. Be better than you were. Be who Frank believed you could be." They led him away. Marcus turned to his mother. "You okay?" "No, but I will be." She took a shaky breath. "Let's go home." Press swarmed them the moment they stepped outside. Cameras flashing, questions shouted from every direction. "Miss Sullivan, why did you ask for treatment instead of maximum sentence?" "Dorothy, do you really believe Wade can change?" "Marcus, how do you feel about your mother's statement?" Marcus put himself between them and his mother. Gunner and Ghost materialized on either side, creating a wall of leather and muscle. "No comment. She's been through enough." Detective Reeves appeared, helped clear a path to the parking lot. "Come on, folks. Give the lady some space. Show's over." In the car driving away from the courthouse, Dorothy was quiet, looking out the window at Phoenix streets, at the desert beyond, at the world she'd almost left behind. "You think I was too soft on him?" she said finally. "Not a question. I think you were you, compassionate, forgiving, maybe more than he deserves." "Forgiveness isn't about what people deserve, Marcus. It's about what we need to survive." She looked at him. "I needed to let go of the anger, the hate. It was eating me alive, destroying me from the inside just as surely as Donovan's fist destroyed me from the outside." Marcus understood. He'd felt it too. The rage, the desire for revenge. It had consumed him for weeks after finding her on that garage floor. But he'd let it go, piece by piece, because holding on to it only hurt him. And Wade was in prison now. Justice was served. Holding on to rage wouldn't change that. "Where to?" he asked. "Home, home." The word still felt new, strange. Dorothy's home was Marcus's home now. She'd moved in with him 6 weeks ago. Couldn't go back to the Scottsdale house. Too many ghosts. Too much trauma. So Marcus had bought a place. Small ranch house on the edge of Phoenix. 2 bedrooms. A yard where Dorothy could garden. Close enough to the clubhouse that Marcus could check in on his brothers. Far enough that she had peace. They'd settled into a rhythm. Breakfast together every morning. Coffee on the porch, watching the sunrise. Dinner most nights, though Dorothy insisted on cooking despite Marcus's protests. They watched old movies, played cards, talked about everything they'd missed in 15 years. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes they argued about small things. Sometimes the silence felt heavy with bigger things unsaid. But they were trying, and that mattered more than perfection. The morning was cool rare for Phoenix, even in November. Marcus and Dorothy stood in front of Frank Sullivan's grave, fresh flowers in her hands. Carnations, red ones, Frank's favorite. Marcus hadn't been here in years. More than years, decades maybe. He'd been so angry after his father died. Angry at the war, angry at a world that kept spinning like Frank Sullivan had never existed, angry at everything. But standing here now with his mother beside him, he felt different. Still sad, still aware of everything he'd lost, but grateful too for the time they'd had, for the lessons Frank had taught him before dying in a desert half a world away. Dorothy set the flowers down, touched the headstone with gentle fingers. "Hey, Frank, brought our boy to see you." Marcus knelt, ran his own fingers over the engraved name. Staff Sergeant Frank Sullivan, beloved husband and father. He died so others might live. I'm sorry I haven't visited Dad, Marcus said quietly. I let anger keep me away. Let pride. But I'm here now, and I'm trying to be the man you wanted me to be. Dorothy's hand on his shoulder, warm, real. He knows Marcus. Wherever he is, he knows. They stood in silence, wind moving through the cemetery, American flags snapping on their poles, row after row of white headstones marking men and women who'd served, who'd sacrificed, who'd come home or didn't. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you regret it, taking in Donovan? Trying to honor Dad by helping him? Dorothy thought about it for a long moment. I regret how it ended. I regret that I couldn't save him from himself. But no, I don't regret trying. Your father taught me that some things are worth the con, worth the risk. Trying to save someone even when it's hard, even when it fails, that's always worth it. Even after what he did to you, even then. Because if I let what Donovan did make me bitter, make me stop caring about people, then he wins. And I refuse to let him win. I refuse to let what he did to me change who I am. Marcus stood, looked at his mother. This 80-year-old woman who'd survived hell at home and refused to let it break her spirit, who'd stood in a courtroom and asked for mercy for the man who tortured her, who still believed in redemption even when she'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. And you're kinder than you let yourself believe. You could have killed Donovan. Should have, by most people's standards. But you didn't. You chose justice over revenge. You chose to be better than your anger. That's real strength, Marcus. I learned from you. And your father. The best parts of both of us, she smiled. Even if you did become a biker. Marcus laughed. First real laugh in what felt like forever. Yeah, well, can't win them all. They walked back to the car slowly, Dorothy leaning on his arm. Not because she needed to. She was stronger now, walking better every day, but because she wanted to, because after 15 years apart, physical closeness mattered, touch mattered, connection mattered. I got a letter last week, Dorothy said as Marcus helped her into the passenger seat, from Donovan. Marcus tensed. What did it say? That he's in treatment, real treatment. For the first time in 17 years, he's actually dealing with what happened in Iraq. Dealing with the guilt over your father, the PTSD, all of it. You going to write back? I don't know. She looked out the window. Part of me wants to believe he can change. Wants to see if Frank's sacrifice can still mean something. But another part, she trailed off. Doesn't trust him, doesn't trust yourself around him. I spent so much energy trying to save him, Marcus. Maybe too much. Maybe that's why I couldn't see how bad things were getting until it was too late. Until I was the one who needed saving. Marcus started the car, let it idle. Mom, you're not responsible for his choices. You tried to help. He chose violence. That's on him, not you. I know. Up here, I know. She tapped her temple. But knowing something and feeling it are very different things. They drove in comfortable silence, through Phoenix streets that were starting to feel like home again. Past the hospital where she'd fought for her life. Past the clubhouse where she collapsed 6 months ago. So much had changed. So much had healed. But some scars remained, would always remain. 5 years later, Dorothy Sullivan died peacefully in her sleep at 85 years old. Marcus found her on a Sunday morning. She was in her favorite chair by the window, book open in her lap, reading glasses perched on her nose, coffee cup on the side table still half full. She looked peaceful, like she'd just dozed off, like she might wake up any moment with some observation about the book or the weather or what they should have for dinner, but she didn't wake up. The doctor said it was her heart, said it had been weakening for months, but she'd never complained, never said a word, just kept going, kept living, kept choosing growth over pain every single day. That was Dorothy Sullivan, tough until the very end. The funeral was massive. The church overflowed. Club members in their cuts. Former patients she'd cared for decades ago. People from her support group. Neighbors. Friends. Even Detective Reeves came standing in the back in her gray suit, paying respects to a woman who'd impressed her with sheer force of will. They buried her next to Frank, together again after 38 years apart. Marcus stood at the grave after everyone else had left, looking at the two headstones side by side. Frank Sullivan, beloved husband and father, he died so others might live. Dorothy Sullivan, beloved wife and mother, she lived so others might heal. I kept my promise, Mom, Marcus said to the fresh earth. Took care of you, made your last years good ones, happy ones. I hope that was enough. The desert wind was his only answer. 1 week later, a letter arrived from Arizona State Prison, from Donovan Wade. Marcus stood in his kitchen holding the envelope. Part of him wanted to throw it away unopened, but he thought about his mother, about her capacity for compassion, even in the face of cruelty. He opened it. Marcus, I heard about Dorothy's passing. I don't have the right to grieve. I don't have the right to feel anything. But I'm writing anyway because I need you to know she was the best person I ever knew, and I destroyed that. I will live with that shame every day for the rest of my life. But I want you to know the last 5 years I have been different, better, because of the chance she gave me. The treatment programs, the therapy, the opportunity to face what I did and why I did it. I'm not the man who hurt her anymore. I'm not saying I'm good. I'm not saying I deserve anything, but I'm not that monster. She did that, even after everything she saved me. Just took 5 years in a cell to make it stick. I hope she died knowing that her faith in people, even broken people like me, wasn't wasted. That Frank's sacrifice finally meant something, because I finally became someone worth saving. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for everything. But thank you for not killing me, for giving me the chance to become better. Your father would be proud of you, and Dorothy was proud of you every day. She told me once in a letter I didn't deserve, that you were the best man she knew. She was right. Donovan Wade. Marcus read it 3 times, then carefully folded it and placed it in the box with Dorothy's things. Letters, photos, the journal from that house in Scottsdale, Frank's medals, evidence of lives lived fully, messily, with more love than sense sometimes, but fully. He missed her, would miss her every day for the rest of his life, but he was grateful too, for the 5 years they'd had together at the end, for the reconciliation, for the chance to say everything that needed saying. Not everyone got that. Not everyone got to make peace before the end. Marcus Sullivan did, and that was enough. The phone call came 2 months later. Marcus was in the garage working on the same shovel head he'd been rebuilding the night his mother collapsed. Seemed fitting somehow, coming full circle. The carburetor was finally working right. After all this time, all this effort, sometimes things just needed patience, time to heal. Mr. Sullivan, this is David Brennan. We met a few years back. I served with your father. I remember. How are you, Mr. Brennan? I'm calling because I wanted you to know I started a foundation for veterans with PTSD, free treatment, free counseling, no red tape, no waiting lists. We're calling it the Frank Sullivan Memorial Foundation. Marcus felt something catch in his throat. That's good. That's really good. And I wanted to ask your permission to add Dorothy's name to it. the Frank and Dorothy Sullivan Foundation. They both saved lives. Both believed in second chances. Seems right they should be remembered together. Yeah, that seems right. There's one more thing. We've got funding for our first residential treatment facility. It's going to serve 50 veterans, and we'd like to name it after you, the Marcus Sullivan Recovery Center, because you showed us that justice and compassion don't have to be enemies, that you can hold people accountable and still believe in their ability to change. Marcus sat down on his work stool, the same one he'd been sitting on that night. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll let us honor what you and Dorothy did, how you handled an impossible situation with grace. Marcus thought about his mother, about her standing in that courtroom asking for treatment instead of vengeance, about her living her last years without bitterness, without hate. Okay, yes, but on one condition. Name it. Donovan Wade gets to be part of it when he's released. If he's released. He helps run the programs. He tells his story. He becomes living proof that people can change. Silence on the other end of the line. You're serious. My mother believed in him, even after everything. I think she'd want him to have that chance. Then that's what we'll do. After the call ended, Marcus sat in the garage for a long time, looking at the shovel head, at the tools on his workbench, at the photo of his parents he'd hung on the wall, Frank and Dorothy Sullivan, young and in love and full of hope for the future. They'd both sacrificed so much, both given everything. And in the end, their legacy wasn't just Marcus. It was every person who'd learn from their example, every veteran who'd get help because of Frank's name, every abuse survivor who'd find hope because of Dorothy's story. That was worth something, maybe worth everything. Marcus picked up his wrench, went back to work on the bike. Outside, the desert sun was setting. Another day ending, another day survived. And Marcus Sullivan's son-brother biker survivor was at peace. Finally, completely at peace.